All right, guys, welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of Inside the Huddle here in the studio. I'm here with Coach Dean Adams. Coach, how we doing this morning?
Doing good.
Panthers got a big win Friday night, 24-14 over Gurdon. What did you see from your team in that Week 0 matchup?
We played good the first half, I thought. Second half, Coach Jackson did some things that gave us problems on offense, and we had a lot of missed assignments. We had some missed opportunities too that I wasn't happy about later on. And right there before half, I had a waste of timeout, for organizational reasons, and I wasn't happy about that. So a lot of things that little things that we did that gave Gurdon a chance Friday night, and not taking anything away from them, but I was proud of our defense. That we got two takeaways on defense. We had two interceptions, Damian Stevens and Jaden Mullins, and then we actually had a forced fumble on our kickoff team. Forced a fumble right out of the gate at halftime, and Anthony Velasquez covered that and gave us another chance to score there. But offensively, I wasn't very pleased on the offensive side of the ball. We made a lot of mistakes and things that were kind of out of our character on the offensive line Friday night. But, we played hard, and we were excited, and we got after it. So our effort wasn't a problem, but it was just some things mentally that they need to correct before we play Fordyce this week.
Yeah, most definitely. You talk about, the mental mistakes. There were some penalties in that first drive, and stuff of that nature.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I kind of figured that's what you were alluding to. But how do you, as a coaching staff, try to conquer that in a week of practice and get all that cleaned up?
Well, it was the penalties were from mental mistakes. So going off our offensive lineman rules, it wasn't just one lineman in particular. We made mistakes across the board from tackle to tackle, and we got a couple high-low penalties because we weren't doing what we were supposed to do, what we were coached to do. And so we'd both be blocking the same guy and scooping the same guy. And those penalties were good calls. Well, we didn't have a lot of penalties, but what we did have was mental breakdowns that on the 4-yard line we could have scored right there before we kicked the field goal. But whether Mike linebacker was unblocked and tackled Angel for a no gain, and then we had a kick field goal, So what turned out to be 3 points could have been 7 points instead. But we have gotten it fixed this week. In practice, we showed them their film corrections Monday, and then practice Monday, and we've had a good week of practice so far. So I'm proud of the guys. And the one thing that I like about our team this year is that they take that coaching. They don't take it personal. It's hard nowadays, with kids. A lot of people take things personal, but you made a mistake, own up to it and fix it. And I think we've done a good job of that this week.
Yeah, most definitely. If you switch focuses, moving into, what is known as Week 1, and it doesn't make sense. You played 2 games and we're in Week 1. But you have Fordyce, which now has almost sort of become, a rivalry. You kind of think back, and the Redbugs and Coach Rogers, they're a young team, but he's a very, very well-rounded coach. And so how do you look at Week 1 matchup against the Redbugs here at home?
Fordyce is good. They've always been good, a good football team, especially under Coach Rogers. He coached me in high school my senior year, and he was my junior high head coach when I was at Fordyce. And he's a good coach. He's very smart. He's not going to make the same mistakes over and over. He's going to fix something, and he's not going to allow it to be taken advantage of over and over. He's going to make sure that that's taken care of during the game. So, you got to be on your toes when you play them, and they've always had good athletes there, even when I played, which we were in 4A when I played, and we were in a pretty good little conference, the 8-4A, which had Warren and Pine Bluff Dollarway, back when Dollarway was romping and stomping, and the Star City Bulldogs, Hamburg Lions, Lake Village, the McGee Owls. I mean, I go on and on. It was a tough conference, and so we dropped to 3A my senior year, and Coach Rogers got that job, and he's done a phenomenal job since. Obviously, won 2 state championships when they dropped down to AA, and they've always had phenomenal athletes, and they're going to have phenomenal athletes this Friday night. They run the ball extremely hard. They've got a big old freshman quarterback. I played with his daddy. Um, and he can throw it a mile. But they've got a great team. So I tell the guys, um, rise to the occasion. If you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And I said that last year too. And after our off season, I pray and we work really hard every day to embrace that. You can't look at someone that's a good football team and be beat down when you walk on the field. You got to go out there and think you're the best too. And our guys, they believe they can win. They know they can win, but we got to do the little things right, and we got to win the turnover battle. And we have to play great defense. We know what they're going to do. Who's going to do it better? We're going to be able to stop what they do because we know what's coming. We know when it's coming, but we got to stop it. Same thing on offense. Got to move the ball. Got to run tough. We got to match their intensity Friday night, and I'm excited. I love these kind of football games. I love playing great football teams, and our kids they'll rise up to the challenge Friday night.
It's most definitely going to be a challenge, there's a lot of talk about that quarterback because he's not a small fella,
No, he's a big guy. His dad was big. His dad played linebacker. Actually, I moved up. We moved up at the end of the season and my freshman year, and his dad was a senior. But the year before, Fordyce made a semifinal run, and his dad played with a broke arm at linebacker, and he was a tough guy. But that's his son, and he's a big old fella just like his daddy. He's a good football player, and so hats off to him for coming up as a freshman and not being intimidated and competing. But um, we're going to try to make it intimidating Friday night when he comes over to Magnet Cove. So
most definitely, it ought to be a good one in the Cove Friday night. Panthers host the Redbugs, and we will see y'all at Kenneth W. Hammond Stadium Friday night. I appreciate your time today, Coach.
sir, thank you.
That right there was Coach Dean Adams, the head man here at Magnet Cove. We appreciate him every week coming in the studio and giving us that quality Panther content. But before we move on to our guest this week, I wanted to thank our sponsors, Razorback Camper Sales over in Hot Springs, the longest owned and family-operated RV dealership in the state of Arkansas. That is Razorback Camper Sales on Albert Pike Road in Hot Springs. And then down I-30 a little bit is going to be Hartzell's Farms and Excavating. Mr. Vernon Hartzell is a longtime supporter of what we got going on here at Magnet Cove, so big shout out to him. But our guest this week is going to be Mr. Erick Taylor from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. I've got to know Eric a little bit through just meeting him throughout, my little journey in media. I really appreciate him coming on. He has got as many irons in the fire as I do. He does some Arkansas University at Pine Bluff riding. So we talk a little bit about the Golden Lions and the Razorbacks playing last week. He was at the Joe T. Robinson PA game, which was a great game up in Little Rock. We talk about that a little bit, and there is tons more in this episode, so please stay tuned. We did have one error. My camera did not record, so just audio here on out. So I appreciate all of y'all tuning in, and here is Mr. Erick Taylor. All right, guys, our guest this week here on Inside the Huddle is from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette, Erick Taylor. How you doing today, Erick?
Doing good, man. I can't complain. It's one day closer to week one, I guess, officially of high school. So
Yeah,
I love it.
we had week 0 last week, and man, we had some doozies of games. Let me tell you, we had out-of-state competition, massive in-state competition. So what game did you go cover Friday night?
Yeah, I was over at in West Little Rock, man, for Class Academy and Joe T. Robinson, and a pretty good game, man. It was all PA for a while, and then Robinson came back and made it interesting. So it's hard to be a pretty good game.
Yeah, there was a lot of hype going into that game with it being Anthony Lucas's first game in the 7A Central. But PA did come out on top in that. But there's Murphy leaves Robinson, and they have that new quarterback come in who's looking pretty good. What did you see in him Friday night?
You know what, Tyson Bradden, he's a transfer from North Little Rock, and I remember watching him in a couple of games last year. And he has a really, really good arm. Um, and if he's protected well, he can do some damage, which kind of happened in the fourth quarter of that game last Friday night. PA got out on them 35-7. And then, Braden kind of struggled a little bit earlier in the game, but he kind of settled in that fourth quarter and got, better protection. And he found guys open and made some plays, and they got it within 14 and had a chance to cut it to 7. But they had a late turnover, I think, inside PA's 10 with about 5 minutes left, and they pretty much took the starch out of the rest of the game for them. So, but he's gonna be fine. Robinson has a good team. They've got athletes, on both sides of the ball. They actually played well against PA. If you can keep from getting buried early against PA and keep that game kind of close, then anything can happen. And I think, PA getting out on them so early put them in a hole that they really just couldn't get back from all the way.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to get down early that much to PA, but there was a lot of massive games, in week 0. Obviously, I guess the premiere of them all was Parkview going down to Melissa, Texas, and playing in that awesome, magnificent stadium. I saw pictures of it, and it was crazy.
Yeah, that game. I actually was following that game on Saturday night, and it was a game that I actually thought Parkview was going to win it, just because of all the speed that they have on the outside. And Melissa's good. They're always good down there. Like that stadium down there is something to see, man. But yeah, Parkview went down and handled business, man, and came back with, probably one of the biggest wins under Coach Golden. I would think naturally the state title wins over Shiloh the last couple of years have been huge. The win over Bryant was big last night, but this one right here, to go down and beat a really good Melissa team on their home turf was huge.
Yeah, going down to Texas, just period, is big in itself. But playing, a team like Melissa and coming home with the win is big. But man, a couple other things, in week 0, Greenwood absolutely demolished Bentonville West, hanging 70 on them. That was kind of stuff, that North Arkansas region. But back home, you got the Benton put a scare in Bryant. Benton had the lead going into the fourth quarter, 28-24, and then Bryant comes back and wins it. 3 consecutive touchdowns by third-year starting quarterback Jordan Walker. How did you really evaluate the Salt Bowl?
The outcome didn't surprise me, and Benton's going to be one of these teams in 6A that's going to, I think, challenge Greenwood, for that top spot all year. But I was kind of surprised that the game unfolded the way it did. It took a kind of a late flurry that Bryant had to kind of put that one away. But Benton showed a lot of mettle, man. I mean, to keep that game where it was for as long as it was, and them having the lead late, which I think is something that they hadn't had against Bryant in years. I think that kind of surprised me. But again, Bryant winning wasn't a shock at all. I think, they got a lot of things to work on that they can work on, this week in particular to kind of show some stuff up. And I think that'd be fine. But Ben being able to score the way they did, kind of, I think, surprised people, including me.
Yeah, I mean, the defensively for Bryant, you wonder, Benton puts 42 on him in the end. You wonder how that defense is going to evolve, going into arguably the toughest conference in all of Arkansas high school football, the 7A Central.
Right.
So I think that's the main question mark for Hornet fans right now.
Exactly. And they got a tough game this week against Christian Brothers out of Memphis. And I think they've got the Parkview game, of course, next week. So before they even get to conference play, they've got, 2 other really, really tough non-conference games, man, that they're going to have to, kind of work some things out.
Yeah, they're gonna have to work it out, and both of those games being on the road. So, that I think those 2 games in themselves will determine what Bryant team we have. But also, you never doubt Quad Sanders. So
Never will, never have, never will.
yeah,
Not about to start.
I'm not gonna start now. And he's got that mentality of if they do end up going 1-2 per se, in these first three non-conference games, it still wouldn't surprise me to see them win the 7A Central. Not at all.
Oh, right, no doubt, man. These that's why you play the non-conference schedule. Kind of work the kinks out before you get to the conference portion of the slate. So, even if they do, go 1-2, 2-1 or whatever, it's only going to make them get better, or help them get better rather. But it's going to be interesting to see how they respond these next few weeks.
Yeah, we'll be curious. And then I want to hit on one other game that's just down the road for me. Lakeside dethrones Lake Hamilton for the second year in a row. I could not remember before last year in my lifetime that Lake Hamilton lost to Lakeside, and now it's 2 consecutive years, and, man, Coach Rock has got it rolling over there with the Rams.
You know what? I know you remember this during our media days. The Lake Hamilton guys were kind of looking forward to this game. And I think last year, Lakeside beat them. That was the first time they'd won in, I think, 30 years or so. But like you said, 2 years in a row now. That's huge. And this Lakeside team is really good. There's a lot of talent over there. Like I said, Coach Rockwell got those guys believing and playing with confidence, and love to see stuff like that, man.
Yeah, it's definitely great. And I watched the last. I went back and watched the Lakeside broadcast of that game, and Lake Hamilton had the ball with I think 45 seconds left, and it was 34-29. So they would have had to gone down and scored a touchdown at the end, but didn't have it in them as the clock ran out on. They didn't have any timeouts left, and it's one of those has to be a miracle kind of drives. And Lake Hamilton just didn't have it in them. But I think the biggest storyline, and this is the last thing I'll say about Week 0, was the battle of the 270 highway down there between Sheridan and Whitehall. Kelly gets his first win as a Yellow Jacket and did it in dramatic fashion, recovering 3 onside kicks.
I was kind of following the game when I go to the P.A. Robinson game. And, some of the guys in the press box were just on pins and needles trying to find out what was going on. I was kind of keeping them updated. But hey, I mean, what Sheridan did, it didn't really shock me. I mean, it's Coach Kelly. His system and getting the onside kicks, it's kind of neat in a way to hear. They've got 3 in a row, and then scored touchdowns on all 3, which is routinely what he did at PA, man. So I think him being down there makes a huge difference for Sheridan. And then Sheridan last year, I know their record didn't indicate it, but they had talent on their team. I saw them a few times, the 23 season, and they weren't without talent, that's for sure. And I think with Coach Kelly coming in and kind of putting his imprint on that and just melding all that talent together, I think it's gonna show quite a bit this year. Now it may not result in a state title or anything like that, but you're going to see a really, really much improved Sheridan team all year.
Yeah, I think you will. And obviously, even when a legendary, name like that within the state of Arkansas comes into a program, your first year, is not going to be your. I don't want to say your craziest year, but like you said, I think they can contend, but I don't know about a state title or anything of
I don't see a state title. But like I said, it wouldn't shock me if they somehow snuck in and possibly getting a 4 spot, and even that's going to be tough considering the conference they're in. But like I said, they're going to be worlds better than what they've been in quite some time.
Yeah, but I guess moving on to Week 1, we've got some pretty good matchups this week. What do you have your eye on going into Week 1?
I haven't really decided where I'm going to go just yet, but like you said, we got some really good games. The Bentonville-Conway game is always a good one. I think Parkview's playing Maumelle, and it's going to be a really interesting one just to see, where Maumelle is right now. They've got a lot of good talent over there, a lot of hype around that program. Quite a few interesting games.
Yeah, there definitely is a lot of interesting games. Everybody obviously. The hype around the Maumelle program and Brian Maupin over there, he has definitely got the confidence going for those guys. But
it really does.
Man, there's a lot of good games. I look at this list, and you have one game I didn't even know was being played. Shiloh goes to Little Rock Christian this week. So
yeah, Shiloh and Christian again in a rematch last year. Shiloh came down last year and I think won that game by about 3 or 4 scores last year. I think was when I saw that score, it kind of shocked me last year. So I'm sure Christian's going to have a little revenge, so to speak, on their mind. But again, Shiloh is really, really, really good, man.
Yeah, that game last year was when Bo Williams had all those yards. I can't
Yeah,
remember what the exact number was, but it like once he did that, like there was all these eyes on him. But yeah, that Bentonville Conway, Bryant at Christian Brothers, Shiloh at Little Rock, and then Fayetteville goes to Broken Arrow, Oklahoma.
yeah.
So that
Fayetteville, that's going to be a tough one out with for Fayetteville. But again, this Fayetteville team, I think a lot of people kind of thought they would kind of fall off a little bit, but they literally reloaded, man. They had a quarterback come in that's taking advantage of that offense, and they hadn't missed a beat. They really put it on Cabot last week. I think won that one by 35 or so. But there's another game also, man, that I just thought about. Harding Academy and Marion. That's the game that's probably sliding on some radars, but that's a big test for Harding Academy and Marion as well. Two teams that I think are going to make deep playoff runs this year.
Yeah, 6A's got some sleeper games like that. Harding Academy, moving up classifications. And then Marion, with that kid committed to LSU, and then man, they've got a great receiving core over at Marion. But then Sheridan goes to Lakeside this week, so
that's another one, man. It's going to be interesting as well to see if what the Yellow Jack can do for an encore in that second game, man. Like I said, Lakeside's got a lot of talent, man, and they got a lot of high expectations, which hasn't always been the case around Lakeside, man. But like I said, Coach G has those guys believing, man. It's gonna be interesting.
yeah, it will be interesting. Then I want to ask you about one more game in Week 1. It's kind of down in your area, but Kimball, Texas, and Pine Bluff are playing at UAPB Saturday. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know anything about Kimball, Texas, because I couldn't even tell you where it's at. But
that's a game where, first of all, Pine Bluff is in a I don't want to say rebuilding year, but they lost some really, really good talent from last year. Austin Lindy and Courtney Crutchfield are both playing football in Missouri right now. Landon Holcomb, the quarterbacks over at UFB playing right now. So they had to replace a lot on offense. They went down to Texas this weekend as well, this past weekend, and played Millwood, Oklahoma. They lost that game, I think 14-0. But they'll have Kimball at home. And Kimball, got talent. They're around in that, Central Texas area. And that'll be a game I think is going to test Pine Bluff. Coach Williams has those guys playing well, had them playing well since he's been there. So just the fact that they get this game at home, so to speak, right across town at Pine Bluff, they're playing at Wicked Beach Stadium. It's going to be a test for them, just to see if they can come back and kind of bounce back from last week's showing.
yeah, I will be curious, and I saw that Millwood score, and I thought that was a very because last year, Pine Bluff put a lot of points on a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But when you lose a caliber guy of Crutchfield, like you said, you have two athletes playing at an SEC school. You're gonna lose some production. That's
Exactly.
just the way it is. But there's one really small school game, and I don't know how much you look at the smaller classifications, but Junction City goes to Carlisle. And so that one is really on my radar, just because, Harmony Grove, Camden Harmony Grove went to Junction Friday night and won that game. Because right now a lot of people have Junction, moving from 3A to 2A for Junction to win the 2A by far. But, man, Carlisle's a hard-nosed team, and that one's going to be a good one Friday night.
Out of all the games that happened in Week 0, I think that Camden Harmony Grove Junction game may have surprised me more than any one of them. There's so much anticipation about Junction this year. The last few years they haven't been, or they haven't looked like the Junction that we've all been accustomed to seeing. And I expected them to come out and kind of throttle, Harmony Grove, but just the opposite happened. I think that's probably like Camden's 5th or 6th straight time beating Junction or something of that nature. I think I saw that somewhere. So this game with Carlisle is, I think, huge for Junction. Just to get back on solid footing right now because I can guarantee you they kind of went in that game last week thinking that they were going to get a win, and they came out with a double-digit loss. And now you have to play a really, really good Carlisle team that's coming off a huge win over, I think, Drew Central as well, and now they're playing at home as well. So that's a big game on both ends.
Yeah, that I think will determine a lot in 2A. A lot of people, that being the smallest classification. But another smaller classification game I wanted to really talk about was Bismarck, who hung 35 on Mansfield last week at Bismarck, 35-31 over there at Bismarck. Travels down. This is a 2A opponent, but I say top 3 behind Junction and Carlisle is going to be they go to Mineral Springs. So
Bismarck is,
go ahead.
in my opinion, is a sleeper. Last year's team, what they did last year and to play the way they did, it wasn't surprising. I saw them the year before against Prescott, and they had a lot of young guys. I think they were sophomores at the time that played well. Now they're seniors. So Bismarck scoring the way they did last week was surprising. And they'll get another test this week. Mineral Springs is always good. I think they're top 2 or 3 in 2A, and they're playing at home. So I'm with you on that one. That's really a game that I definitely have my eyes on. Kind of score watching, see how that one unfolds.
Yeah, I know, and this may sound crazy, being so close to Bismarck, but I would almost pick Mineral in that one because I think I got to see Bismarck. They scrimmaged Haskell Harmony Grove a couple weeks ago before week 0, and I got to go to that game. And if people can cover the back end on Bismarck, I think they can survive.
Yeah, you're exactly right, man.
And Mineral has the kids to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and that's a Mineral is they've been good for really good the last few years too. So it wouldn't surprise me one bit. That Mineral won that game. But like you said, if they can slow down, I don't know if they're going to maybe shut down that back end, but they can slow them down. It's going to be huge.
Yeah, because and obviously, a coach doesn't show everything in a scrimmage, So they did the 10 minutes of offense, 10 minutes of defense kind of deal, like the old Pee Wee Jamboree kind of style. And Bismarck scored on the first 4 plays consecutively.
Wow.
And they were running these go routes down the sideline. And I'm like, man, they've got to, and they would send safety help and they would just burn them down the sideline. So I know Mineral has the athletes to do it. I think Mineral has to stay disciplined enough in the back end because Coach Keithley, A, he knows what he's doing, and B, he has the athletes to do it.
Right.
So if they, if the long ball isn't working, I'll be curious to see what they go to because they hit a lot of those, long balls, and I haven't had the opportunity to go watch the broadcast of the Bismarck Mansfield game, but that one I think it is really flying under the radar, just like the Carlisle Junction game. But man, we got a lot of good games this week, and we've hit on quite a few of them. But looking out, if you were to just look at 7A, and if you were to even look ahead to conference title playoff time, who are you really looking at?
Man, honestly, if I had to go 7A, I think really still it's you still got to chase down Fayetteville. They lost a lot, of course, but they brought some key guys back. Like they brought a new quarterback in who has taken over that offense and hadn't missed a beat. Brian, of course, I'm not really, I'm sure Quad's going to get their attention as far as the defensive end. They're going to score against anybody. They got too many weapons offense. So those two, I think, in 7A. Of course, Conway, with Grayson Wilson going over there, and they had a big win last week as well. So 7A is going to be interesting, man. It's always interesting to see whatever PA is going to be able to do against bigger teams. The one thing I did notice last week with them and Robinson is that, now that they're in 7A, depth could become an issue. I think it kind of uh, leaked in a little bit last week. You know, um, but again, I think they're going to be able to score regardless as well. So that 7A is going to be definitely be tough. The other classes, man. I mean, I know Junction was favored coming into A, but like you mentioned earlier, Mineral Springs, the Carlisles, Bigelow. There's a Conway Christian team. I think people are going to start opening their eyes to in the next few weeks. 3A, the usual suspects, Boonville, Prescott. 4A, I really fully expect Arkadelphia to get back going. Warren, of course. I think Bauxite is a team may have the best starting 11 offensive of anybody in the 4A, outside of Warren, maybe. And 5A, of course, you got two-time state champs, Parkview. Everybody's chasing them. And then Greenwood, 6A, same with them. The way they went up and doubled up West with 70 points. That's impressive, man. So I think we're really in for a really, really good high school year. There's a lot of really good, interesting matchups. Yeah, it's gonna be wild, man.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be wild, and dude, I would almost, saying 7A, I think, Fayetteville has the West locked down, in my opinion. Just from what I've seen, we have somebody with the last name Odom playing quarterback.
Right.
You're gonna be pretty decent. And then you have a 4-star linebacker transfer in. Anytime you have a 4-star linebacker, your defense is gonna have that edge. But the West, the Central, that's the last man standing, in my opinion, because
Yeah.
I think Bryant, Conway, and PA all could have something to say. I really
All three
think they
of those
will.
teams
And
are
then
gonna be in the thick of it.
yeah, and then
Sure.
6A, you gotta get beat to be brought down, I guess.
Right.
Is Greenwood situation? And I had Coach Young on the podcast last week, and basically he said, we're gonna keep doing what we've been doing, so them offensively is scary to any defense. I don't care if you're 7A or if they even had an 8A,
It's that Greenwood team, man. I think their first two games are against 7A teams, and I fully expect them to beat each one by 4 scores or more. But that's not a knock on the teams they're playing. It's just how good Greenwood is this year.
Yeah, they are loaded. And then 5A, the obvious favorite there is Parkview, like you said. But man, you just gotta. Man, I don't even know who would challenge him in 5A at this point. Maybe Harding, maybe.
Harding Academy, like I said, they had a lot coming back as well. I really like this Joe T team. Like I said, they can continue to kind of protect Braden more. They're going to be fine. But man, Parkview has so much talent at the key spots. That's the thing on both sides of the ball. It's I think it's a situation where if you have to try to make them one dimensional, you have to try. If you can slow down the run game and make them pass the ball, you may have a shot. But even then, it's still gonna be tough.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, slow him down, but I think you have to make it, if you want to beat Parkview, I think you have to make Murphy make decisions on his feet.
Exactly.
Because he is so, man, you've got 2 D1 commits to just shuffle the ball to and let them, do what they do, if I was a quarterback, all I'd do is hand it off to Montario Elson and let him go,
And let him go. Yeah.
So you have to eliminate, something, but then you're at the point, pick your poison,
Exactly.
Who you gonna eliminate, and then if you go down to 4A, man, that's a every man for themselves UFC fight, if you ask me.
That's going to be a really, really tight class, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you got Arkadelphia and Warren, obviously. being the top two. But then you got Bauxite, and I don't know if you heard or not, but Bauxite's quarterback is hurt. We do not know.
You know, it surprised me, and I figured something must have happened because I saw where I think Wembley may have been playing quarterback this past week, and instead of Coach Perry's son, so I figured something must have happened there.
Yeah, it's kind of been kept under wraps. I'm not sure. I do not know myself. But I noticed. I had somebody text me during the they scrimmaged for City. And I had a buddy at the scrimmage, and he's like, "Hey, who's their quarterback?" And I was like, "It should be Perry." And he's like, "Perry's not playing." And I was like, "What?" And so then I waited, because I thought, well, maybe it's just scrimmage, and Perry's not playing him, something along those lines. And then, like you said, I saw the same thing. You saw Wimberly come out of quarterback, and I'm like, what?
Right.
Kind of those things. So it's kind of been kept under wraps. I don't know. I'm not really, Box that's not one of the teams I cover. So I'm
Right.
not sure there, but there's a lot of hype around that 4A, and I went and saw Arkadelphia play Prescott, and man, that was a game. Let me tell you, in that scrimmage game, yeah, it was insane. It did not feel like a scrimmage, and my thing is defensively, I don't know who can like has the offense to go on Arkadelphia's defense is what I'm trying to get out. But
yeah, especially in that 4A.
yeah, but there's a lot of people that like Southside Batesville. I haven't, looked at a lot of Coach Simpson stuff up there. Obviously, Mills moving down obviously makes them a contender going from 5A to 4A, and then Dardanelle moving down. You got both of those schools at 4A. That could contend. I think they're all quarterfinals teams at least. But it's kind of a how do things shake out? If
Yeah, exactly.
if Creed Vega up at Dardanelle can get it rolling, there may be something there. But I think in Little Rock it'll come down to Arkadelphia and Warren, because I think somebody, with the conference that Bauxite plays in, being the 4A7, moving them back to the 4A7, I don't think there'll be a 1 seed going into the playoffs. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
That's all high school football talking podcast are opinions. But I that one's open. And then 3A, the main one I cover, man, it's I don't know an adjective for it. You have Prescott blow out a 4A CrossFit team by 40. And so you're like, man, wow, okay. Because
that one, I fully expected Prescott to win that one, but the manner in which they did it was kind of surprising.
yeah, I mean, I picked him to win. Coach Glass. There was a lot of speculation going in the season with him moving Prater to quarterback from safety,
Right.
the 3-star Tulsa commit. So going from playing free safety to quarterback, that's a bit of a jump. But when you have so many athletes, you have so many athletes around you,
Right.
But man, and then obviously Boonville beating Poto, Oklahoma was a big one last week for the Bearcats. You have to replace Dax Goff, so there's a job there for somebody. And then it's after those two, it's a pretty jumbled mess. I'm not gonna lie to you.
After those two, you have probably 8, 9, 10 that are in that mix. I'm wondering, interested to see how Rivercrest gets their season, started. I think Newport is going to be pretty good this year as well. But again, you got a bunch of teams in there, the Salems of the world and guys like that. That it's going to be a situation where you just kind of got to let things play out.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Newport. They had the kid transfer to Greenwood, the receiver, and then he moves
Mm-hmm.
back. So now you've got Keandre Barker, a 3-star running back, and now you've got a D1 receiver, at a 3A school. And my sophomore year, we had to go to Newport and play them in the first round of the playoffs. And dude, man, that was not a fun game. But they had that, I can't remember the kid's name. He was committed to Jackson State at the time.
Oh, the receiver.
The receiver, big, tall, number 1. I mean, tall and lanky. Yeah, us country boys could not cover him whatsoever. And nobody was able to cover him, I don't remember who they ran into in the playoffs. They got beat by a couple touchdowns. But, a lot of people like McGee this year. So 3A, I think, past the Prescott and the Boonville, you could throw Walnut Ridge in the discussion with Perez at running back and the massive offensive line they have. It's like,
and this Friday, Thursday, actually, one of those teams again, Salem plays Prescott Thursday night. That'd be a good barometer game, Salem. See how legit they are early.
yeah, that one will be good. And, there's, man, I don't know if there's a word for it, because you have a blob of teams. And I think there's more than just the top 10 that contend. I really do think they are. One team that's not on this list, that's in Magnet's conference is Perryville. You have a kid coming back that tied the state record for interceptions last year. He just happens to be their safety and their quarterback. But it's
and
then
another team that we hadn't even mentioned that's always for years been a top dog, and that's Charleston.
yeah,
It's a lot of teams, man, in that 3A.
Yeah, and it's a blob. It really is. On who could, I think all the teams we have mentioned could contend, if you have, but then, you have that one team that, may have lost crazy last week and then, get their crap together in the latter half of the season and get a 3 seed going in the playoffs and then find themselves in the semifinals. So,
Semifinals.
yeah, it's really crazy, and that's what I love about covering, high school football is it's the uncharted. It really is. But
Man, that's right, man.
But
gotta love it.
Oh yeah, I love it. And then I wanted to ask you one question. I usually don't talk about college, but with you covering UAPB, I wanted to ask your thoughts. Obviously a blowout win for the Hogs, but I wanted to ask what you thought about the Arkansas Golden Lions game.
Being at that game, I don't think anyone there thought that UAPB would keep it within 5 scores. And obviously it took maybe 3 minutes to realize how that game was going to turn out. I didn't anticipate Arkansas putting 70 on them. But one thing I think that went unnoticed in that game, and particularly for UAPB, they played a lot of young guys, a lot of transfers. Regardless of that score, some good came out of that game for them. Some of the guys I think actually played well. Now, of course, it didn't translate on the scoreboard, of course. But that game is going to help them more than hurt them. Trust me. And not just the guaranteed money that they got, but some of those guys getting to play against the SEC team, and some played well. But of course, Arkansas. It's I've had a lot of people ask me about how I thought Arkansas looked, and it's kind of hard to gauge from that game in particular. But I will say this: they looked like a team that played loosely. They don't have any. I don't think have any. Stars, so to speak. on either side of the ball this year. And I think there's a bunch of guys going out just playing football. And I hope that carries over, this weekend. We got a tough one against Oklahoma State. But, we'll find out a whole lot more about this Arkansas team, Saturday morning at 11 o'clock. So.
Yeah, and I think it's good to play the in-state games. I think it really does build something. But seconding your point, I had people ask me, well, how do you think Arkansas looked? Well, how do you gauge it? And you can't. And that's nothing demoralizing against the Golden Lions. There's just a massive matter of fact size difference in skill difference. And
size, speed.
Yeah.
It was so so apparent, and all week actually, Coach Hampton, USC was kind of not really focusing much on the power, the FCS, but it's undeniable when you're playing teams like that. They had several teams from that conference playing bigger schools last weekend, and every game was a 5-6 score blowout at least. But that's just that size difference, man. To see the size of Arkansas's O line against USC's D line, man, you're talking about a 150, 180-pound difference a lot of times. It seems like anyway.
Yeah, and that's an SEC school versus a SWAC school.
There you go.
And you can't. I don't want to say. X's and O's wise, it's the same. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's apples and oranges.
Yep.
With one being now the Power 4 or whatever you would like to say there. And then one being a SWAC school, but I do I respect Coach Hampton and what the Golden Lions did. Yes, it was a goose egg, but I think it says a lot to show up and play. I think it does say a lot, and I think it's really good for the camaraderie of just the landscape of football in general in the state of Arkansas.
Agreed completely, man.
But, all right, man. Well, it has been real. It has been fun, and it has been real fun. I appreciate you coming on the show this week, Mr. Erick.
Yes, sir. Anytime, man. Just let me know when I love talking football this time of year, man. The time we've been waiting for months and months. I'm here for it, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you coming on this week, and I will talk to you later on, sir.
Appreciate it, brother.
All right, guys, that right there was Mr. Erick Taylor from the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. He covers a lot. He doesn't have one specific title. He has been a great friend, that I've always been able to bounce ideas off, so it's great to get him on the podcast. But that's going to wrap it up for episode 2 of Inside the Huddle. Panthers host Fordyce this week, so that ought to be a good one. But I want to thank my sponsors one more time. Hartzell's Farms and Excavating, and Razorback Camper Sales. Huge thanks to them for keeping the show on the road. And we will see y'all next week on Inside the Huddle.